So the issue was she took some protein without asking for permission from any of the chefs. And I simply went to her and I politely asked, please, ask Kibobo to portion protein out for you, or ask Big Soso, because she was right there. Or if you don't want to talk to Big Soso, ask Irota. And she said, I can't tell her what to do in Big Brother's house.
You believe you were floating in a pool of water. In Big Brother's eye, you were flying in the sky.
That is such a beautiful compliment. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you. It means a lot to me. Like I was having a very bad week.
Oh no.
I felt like I was doing so bad. I just wanted things to be good, so but thank you.
Yo. Lord have mercy. Guys, I'm going to be frank with all of you. I wouldn't have forgiven myself if I had missed Faith's diary session today. Yeah, I wouldn't have forgiven myself. I would have been really mad at myself. But I'm glad I did not, because that diary session was loaded. It was loaded with so much. Now, on a normal day, I would want to summarize Housemates' diary sessions, because there are several others to be talked about. But the good thing is, Faith was the only housemate this week that was yet to have his diary session. And I'm glad that Big Brother delayed his diary session till today, because by the time I was done watching his diary session, I understood why Faith needed a whole day, like a separate day, for his own diary session. Ladies and gentlemen, the truth was told. Mistakes were admitted. Reflections were made. Accountability was taken. Advice was given. Not criticisms, but advice was given. A very solid interaction took place between Faith and Big Brother. And besides that, many other things were shared. And then, towards the end, to seal it all up, a lot of accolades and praises to Faith from Big Brother. Ladies and gentlemen, Faith's diary session today was worth the wait. And I'm glad I watched it. So I'm here to dissect everything that was shared and discussed during that diary session, all right? We're going to analyze everything, the facts and the details of it all. We're going to analyze everything. And I urge you all to watch this video with an open mind, all right? And once again, I'm going to appeal to those of you that do not necessarily would agree with me, that it's okay for us to disagree, all right? But just keep it PG, no insults, nothing. I mean, if you have a contrary opinion to whatever I'm going to be sharing on this video, I urge you all to do that respectfully in the comment section, all right? And before we get into it, just a quick reminder that tomorrow is Saturday, and by 3 p.m. WAT, we're going to be converging here for our YouTube live conversation. I look forward to seeing all of you, all right? So please make it a date with us. Do not miss out, because I cannot wait to interact with all of you to unpack all the many interesting events that has actually played out in the house this week, all right? And you are all specially welcome to my channel. My name is Gloria Elijah. This is Frankly Speaking with Gloria Elijah, and I am the girl with the tea. Without further ado, let's get right into the details of this video. Now, let's take it from the very top. So Faith had walked into the diary room, and Big Brother, in his usual manner, had asked him how he was doing. He said he was floating. And every time he uses that word, floating, it means he does not know how he's feeling at that point in time. He does not know if he's okay. He does not know if he is fine. A lot has happened in the past weeks, and it's just left him so overwhelmed. He was not prepared for all of these things that would happen, especially in this week. And so he's left completely high and dry. He's completely overwhelmed. And so he doesn't know if he's fine. He doesn't know if he's okay. So he's just floating. He's just trying, to survive. But in the midst of everything that's happened, he said that he has learned a lot about himself. He has learned a lot about the housemates. He has learned a lot about the house itself. And also, he has learned a lot about leadership. Now, this is where his interaction with Big Brother started proper. At this point, Big Brother asked him, okay, what lessons have you learned in leadership? So we started by talking about his lack of knowledge in kitchen activities, and so he had realized that to be a good leader, you need to actually ask questions, especially when you're not really sure about how things, can be done. And he had asked questions from Big So, Ivata, and K-Bobo, and they had given him excellent solutions on how to ensure that the food for the week actually carry them through, because remember guys, this is the week of the barest minimum, and Big Brother did not supply the housemates their usual 100% food supplies. So because they had lost their wager last week, they had been supplied with only the basics of food items that they will need to survive for the week, pending when they win their wager again. Yes. And guys, if you've been following up with my videos, I've given you all a breakdown of how this whole thing works out, and how Faith had a meeting with not just the chef, but not just the chefs, but with also the rest of the housemates present to hear the conclusions and the recommendations as preferred by the chefs on how they can manage their food supplies pending when Big Brother, delivers a bigger bounty. Now, this was the point where he started taking accountability for his actions. He shared that in lessons on leadership that he has learned so far, he also learned that no matter how good your idea is, the way you communicate it will either make or mar the credibility of that idea. And he realized that was the mistake he had made in that whole Imisi's situation. Now, he had gone ahead at this point to give the details of what exactly had happened, all right? But before I go into the details, he had admitted that though Imisi was wrong in what she did, his response had been quite excessive, and he admits that was not the right approach that he should have used to handle that situation. So he had gone ahead to explain that despite all the conversations that they had had as a house, despite all the agreements they had reached as a house on how to manage the food supplies in the house, Imisi had gone ahead to bypass, the instructions and the authorities of, or let's say the guardianship of the chefs of the kitchen, all three of them. She had gone ahead to bypass all of them, gone to the fridge and taken different proteins that she wanted to use to cook. So the instruction he had given to her was, no, you should take permission from either K-Bobo or Big So. Tell them that, okay, you want to prepare food for so and so, they need to apportion to you the proteins that you will need for that meal that you want to prepare. Because there was also something that Faith explained, that because of the shortage of food supplies, the chefs had actually come up with a food, a food timetable, that sees them having proteins once in a day. So what Imisi had done was that by her own free will, she had gone ahead to take just anyhow amounts that she wanted. When he had called her attention to it, when he had told her, to go ahead and meet with either K-Bobo or Big So to apportion to her the amount or the portions of protein for her to use for that cooking, Imisi had said back to him, you can't tell me what to do. Ladies and gentlemen, in case you don't know, that is very provocative. If Faith was an ordinary housemate, it's a different matter. You can criticize him for reacting the way he did. You can criticize him for getting upset. You can criticize him for whatever. But in this case, Faith is the head of house. He is standing on the authority of the owner of the house, that is Big Brother. If there was no need for a head of house, Big Brother would have scrapped off the title and the position and would have allowed the housemates to just rule themselves and live their lives like they are all in a periwinkle city where everybody has a hat. But then obviously Big Brother's house is not a periwinkle city. Hence the reason they have the title and position of head of house. In other words, the person that is the leader of the house in a particular week, it is expected of that person to maintain order and decorum in Big Brother's house, to create a structured and organized system in the house where people do not live like they are living in the jungle, where people do not live like animals or mental patients in a mental world. So when Imisi made that statement, guys, and Faith, of course, relayed that information to Big Brother in the diary room, the first thing that came to my mind was that old episode that happened 2 weeks ago in the kitchen. This was the same thing Imisi did when she took Faith's pot. And Faith was telling her over and over again, and people in the kitchen were telling her over and over again, that this pot belongs to Faith. Victory washed this pot after he was done using it and had given it to Faith, and Faith is about to cook. He went to go and get supplies to come and put in the pot. And when Faith was telling Imisi, this is my pot, what did she say? I will not give it to you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Ladies and gentlemen, if that is not provocation, please tell me what it is. Maybe I do not understand English, but is that provocation or not? Because it sounded all too familiar when, according to Faith, that was what Imisi said. You can't tell me what to do. And let's not also forget that on Monday, when Faith won the Head of House Challenger, Imisi had been so restless. She had been really upset, and she had made declarations to herself, to her friend Isabella, and to whoever else cared to listen, that she was not going to follow Faith's instructions. She has said it indirectly and directly. And for her, she was not going to follow any of Faith's instructions. Why? Because she hates him. She has said it by herself that she hates him. She cannot stand his presence. She cannot stand even listening to him or talking to him. And guys, we all know where this whole anger and resentment is stemming from Imisi towards Faith. Do I have to go back into that story? No, because we already know. We've overflogged the issue in this community. But we all know where the whole resentment is coming from. So for someone to declare outrightly that even though he's the head of house, I am not going to respect his authority. I do not care if he's the head of house. I will not follow any of his instructions. That is how she has been living her life. She started from that very Monday by not doing her dishes, by not washing her plate. And then so many other things. Taking food without putting down her name or following the instructions or the order of the procedure of how the rest of the house was following the instructions or the suggestions of the head of house. Imisi was doing things by her own free will. So tell me if it is not provocation for her to have said, you cannot tell me what to do. In other words, fuck you. Whether you are the head of house or not, fuck you. Whether you are coming from Big Brother, fuck you. I do not regard you as my leader. I do not regard you as any authority in this house. That is what it meant. And you see, this whole thing would have been different if Faith had been an ordinary housemate. But in this case, he's the head of house. In other words, he is the representation of Big Brother this entire week. So try as much as Faith would try to be polite, Imisi keeps on shoving it down his throat that she is not going to respect his authority. Not even him as a person, but respecting his authority as the head of house. Now, this is where he fucked up. And he admitted that he actually messed up because for him at the time, because he was quite overwhelmed and upset about the whole situation, he thought that it was the best thing to do at that point in time. So what he had done was he decided that, okay, since Imisi had refused to follow instructions and had refused to at least get the proteins checked to ensure that she was not taking more than she should be taking at that point in time, that she was going to turn off the stove, the gas, all the sources that she needed to cook the protein. So if there was nothing for her to use to cook it, then she would relent and then abide by the instructions. So what he had done was he had gone to the kitchen. That's the laundry area that was the makeshift kitchen. He had gone there. He had switched off the stove and he had tried to turn out the kerosene. He had called kerosene fuel. So he had tried to turn out the kerosene into the keg, and whilst he was doing that, that was when Mide immediately went inside the house to go and call Imisi that, oh, come and see you. Faith is turning your food away. So note, ladies and gentlemen, Mide was the one that instigated this whole thing without even hearing from both parties first. She instigated this whole drama. So it now depends on how she went to go and call Imisi, or what exactly she had told Imisi when she went to call Imisi. But now back to Faith. Faith said it was when he was trying to turn the kerosene from the stove into the keg, that was when the kerosene spilled. And of course, Imisi had arrived at that point in time. And of course, they were dragging the whole thing, of course, and the fuel, or rather the kerosene, had spilled on the carpet grass and just messed up the whole place. So in retrospect, he had accepted that he overreacted at that point in time, because that wasn't the best reaction to that whole situation at that point in time. But then it was how he felt that he had reacted at that point in time. And guys, let's not forget that that wasn't the first offense, or let's say provocation or trigger, that Imisi had been throwing his way. That was the third one in a space of 3 days since Faith became head of house. We're not talking about previous offenses. We're talking about in a space of 3 days since Faith became head of house. Imisi had just been giving it to him back to back to back to back. So you can imagine how overwhelmed and how full his head and his emotions were that he had to react. And guys, let's not forget what we always say in this community, that you cannot throw the first punch, or you cannot throw out the first action and then you try to dictate how somebody should respond with their reaction. It becomes very unfair, because you're now trying to control people's feelings about what you have done to them. So Faith acted the way he acted at that point in time in that situation based on all the many provocations, all the many attacks he had been receiving from Imisi. So Imisi in that whole scuffle shouting, oh, you do not want me to eat, blah, blah. She was lying. She was spinning the narrative. She was twisting up everything, because what Imisi was shouting and saying, you think I will not eat, that was all a blatant lie. And I had done a video yesterday where K-Bobo had spoken what had actually happened, that Imisi had bypassed them. So he had to go and report to the head of house. Imisi was blatantly defying the instructions and, let's say, the agreement that the whole house had with regards to how they will manage food supplies for the week. So for those of you saying that, oh, it was Faith's fault, please tell me how it was his fault. Was he the one triggering Imisi? Was he the one provoking Imisi? I mean, be honest with yourself. Answer the question. Was he the one provoking Imisi, or the other way around? Or except you just want to deny yourself of the truth and of the facts? Anyways, he said all of those things to Big Brother. Now, he had also spoken about the whole battery situation. You know, for him, he has seen how lackadaisical these housemates are when it comes to changing batteries. Most of the time, it's like people are actually begging them to change batteries. And so that was the reason why he came up with that new rule, you know, that if you want to be heard, if you want the people who love you to hear you and continue voting for you, you need to take it upon yourself to make a move and go change your batteries. Hence the reason he brought about that, you know, new style of battery change. And you see, I've seen a lot of people criticize Faith for bringing up that new rule. And they've been saying things like, oh, is it the first person to be head of house? After all, other heads of house, this is how they've been doing, this is how they've been doing it. And I'm looking at these people and I'm saying, this is why the society is so decadent. This is why a place like Nigeria, for instance, is the way it is. Because people complain about things not going the right way. And then when certain people who know how to do it better, you know, make that bold move to want to bring in change, they begin to complain. Why? Because they do not want to stop doing the same old things that they are used to, knowing fully well that the same old things that they are known to do does not yield forth fruit. It's not productive enough. It does not yield excellent results. They just want to remain stagnant. They want to be spoon-fed. They want to be spoon-fed On a normal day, the head of house should not even be the one begging housemates to come and change their batteries. Without your battery, you will not be heard. You cannot even talk. You can't talk. So what was wrong with that new rule that Faith introduced in his reign? And mind you, it was his reign. So he had every right to introduce new leadership styles to ensure that things ran smoothly in a week of the barest minimum. Now, aside that, he also mentioned his disappointment in the way and manner with which Joanna had actually reprimanded him in public. And guys, I mean, if you had been following my videos, I also talked about that. I said a good friend will not watch everybody, you know, chop you down and also decide to hit you with the last stroke of the hammer. It doesn't really make sense. It would have been better if Joanna had pulled him aside for a chat other than right there and there where people were chopping at him and crucifying him and dragging at him. You know, she also decided to add her own voice and even made hers more harder on him. It made it look like, oh, she wanted to be amongst everybody else and not want to be the odd one out, you know, and not be seen as an enabler. You know, it was quite sad. It felt like all of his friends deserted him at that point in time. So he mentioned also that Joanna did not help matters even, because afterwards he had tried to talk to her outside and she was just yapping. She did not even want to listen to him, and he felt really alone in that moment because it made him feel like, wow, am I that much of a bad person? You know, and then later on again, you know, not knowing that Joanna had actually picked up the red telephone call and had received instructions to pack up her bags, Joanna had come into the head of house lounge and had packed up her things to leave, and he felt so bad, like, wow, I'm really getting neglected here this time, you know. So the whole situation was really overwhelming for him. A lot of finger pointings at him, a lot of blames here and there, but nobody was actually listening to him, and that was what really made him feel bad about Joanna, because he felt like, this is what the whole house does to me. I tried to talk and they shut me down. You, that is my friend, you shouldn't be doing the same thing. But then again, ladies and gentlemen, just to deviate a bit, this is one thing that Faith does not know that Joanna lacks. Joanna lacks proper listening skills. I've mentioned this several times when I analyze her interaction with Day and Mide. She's always talking over anybody she's having conversations with. She does not know how to listen. I don't really blame her. You know, she's 21. So what do you expect? Even though she's tall, even though it seems like she's kind of exposed, she still lacks proper communication skills. And I think it's something that she would have to grow into, or probably make the conscious effort to learn. And the level at which Faith is at mentally, she's not there yet. So she does not really understand, you know, what it means to listen, to pay attention to the other person in a conversational setting. Yes, she lacks that pretty much. And it was quite sad to see how much it affected Faith. Having listened to all of Faith's purgation, because Faith was just really purgating, having listened to all of it, Big Brother had, you know, started advising him. And I'm going to try as much as possible to get everything verbatim, the way Big Brother had actually advised him. So Big Brother had started by saying that a great leader leads from within, you know, from within his followers, so as to lift them up. When they see how he brings himself to their level to lead them, they would do his bidding because they will not want to disappoint him. That, in other words, a good leader must learn to be fluid. And Faith had agreed with Big Brother. And so Big Brother had asked him, you know, what he was doing about it, if he had been learning. And he had said that he had actually been learning how to be fluid. That, for instance, yesterday, he had looked at the whole situation, looked at the tension in the house. And so he had decided that, okay, fine, he was going to make a move, you know, to try to mend bridges. So when what's his name now, when Jason J was sleeping yesterday, instead of waking him up to come and change his batteries, he had gone ahead to go and help Jason J to change his batteries. And guys, I even witnessed one that happened yesterday morning, or was it yesterday morning and the day before yesterday morning? Rude Boy had collected batteries for Thelma, which wasn't something that Faith was allowing to happen as at Monday or Tuesday. So I personally have also been seeing, the changes here and there, and the shifts in how Faith, has been allowing the housemates to, just do whatever they wanted. In other words, he's been shifting from being more rigid to being more fluid. Now, he also cited another instance of his learning curve. He mentioned that this morning he had seen a lot of dirty plates in the sink outside, right? That's the laundry area that is now the kitchen area. And before today, he would have been looking for who piled it up, but he just literally decided to turn a blind eye to it and let people just do whatever they wanted to do. And lo and behold, Rude Boy had taken a step forward and washed all of the dishes without complaining, that he did not even have to ask. He just left it, and Rude Boy went ahead and washed everything. He said another one that surprised him was Culture on Monday when he became head of house. After cleaning up the whole kitchen, Culture had taken it upon himself to organize all the bottles for recycling, and restocked the fridge with drinks and just did everything like that without him even having to ask. So according to him, he's been learning a lot about fluidity, and he's been seeing how it's been working. He's been learning to listen to people express their feelings, that he now understands that people want to be heard and people want to express their feelings and be sure that you understand it. And he has been learning to listen more. It's a lot, but he's just been learning. And guys, the guy was really overwhelmed at this point in time. He said it's just been a crazy week for him. Sometimes it feels like giving up, but regardless, you have to remind yourself that you are the head of house and you must show up and act your part and do what you have to do and be involved in tasks. And even most of the sponsored tasks this week, his mind has been, off it because of all the struggles he has been having to deal with. And it was at this point that Big Brother was just really sweet. And Big Brother told him that, well, you think you've been floating all week, that in Big Brother's eyes, you've really been flying. You see, and that really triggered Faith to tears. I mean, this guy broke down and he was really crying. And guys, you could actually see that now this guy has been bottling up so much inside. And Biggie's kind words just literally broke everything down. And I liked the fact that he cried. I liked the fact that he shed those tears because of everything that happened during this week. You can tell that Faith just wants to break down, but then it is not in his nature to break down in tears in front of people. So I loved the fact that the diary room became his safe space at that point in time and was able to cry and, just shed it all out, let everything out at that point in time. And, as he was crying, he was saying that, Big Brother, I thought I was just really being a bad person. A lot of people don't understand me. They don't want to listen to me. It was just very emotional. I felt really bad for him because even me too, I found myself heaving a sigh of relief, now that things are beginning to, melt down. So it was such a wonderful moment. And I love the fact that Big Brother was able to listen, offer his advice, and also comfort him, in the way that Big Brother normally comforts housemates. Now, at this point, Big Brother had given him one last advice. He had told him, do not forget to enjoy yourself. Give your fellow housemates some grace and remember that your rules are only yours to follow. Now, you see this last part of Big Brother's wise sayings, your rules are only yours to follow. I kind of found it very confusing and conflicting, and I would really love for us to discuss it tomorrow during our YouTube live conversation, because in a way, I kind of disagreed with Big Brother on that, yes, and I have my reasons why. I know that a lot of you do not agree with me, and that is the reason I want us to discuss this tomorrow during our live conversation, all right? So I will see you guys tomorrow on that. Now, moving on in Faith's diary session, there's this particular question that Big Brother has been asking all the housemates during their own diary session. It's the question of who they think will win the show and why. And Faith had, as usual, once again, giving us a brilliant, intelligent breakdown of housemate whom he deems as his top 5 candidates for this season. Guys, I do not know if I really want to waste your time, by going into all of the details, but I feel like this video is already too lengthy enough. But what I'm going to tell you is this, that Faith did not for once speak ill of any of his fellow housemates. Unlike his fellow housemates that, have been trying to make it look like they're speaking good of him, but then they end up really, really bashing him during their diary sessions, but Faith really tried as much as possible to give very excellent reviews. And overall, he had chosen 5 people. He had chosen Thelma, he had chosen Sultana, he had chosen Ortega, if Ortega was in the house. But then, away from Ortega, he had chosen Jason J, he had chosen himself, and he had also chosen Joanna. And he gave very, very excellent reasons as to why he believes that these people that he had mentioned, including himself, they all each stand a chance, to emerge the winner of the show this season. I wish there was more time. I would have loved to give you all a breakdown, but this video is already too lengthy. Now, overall, I must admit that I thoroughly enjoyed Faith's diary session. I thoroughly enjoyed his interaction with Big Brother. I thoroughly enjoyed the fact that he gave clarity to the whole situation. I mean, I knew all along what was going on, but for the sake of those who either do not know or have refused to face the reality of the situation, I loved the fact that he gave clarity of that whole situation. I loved the fact that he was vulnerable in the diary room. At least let people see that Faith too is human. The fact that he tends to be very rigid in his beliefs, the fact that he tends to be very rigid in his principles, does not mean that he does not have tear glands. Does not mean that he does not have tears to shed as well. Does not mean that he can also be easily broken. The fact that he's also very strong and can stand in the face of adversity does not mean that he can also be weak when the need be. I loved the fact that in his diary room, Big Brother was able to advise him in terms of his leadership skills. And I love the fact that, as an individual, a smart one, he had taken his time to do a lot of self-introspection, a lot of reflection on his actions, and had come into the diary room, taking accountability of all of it. Because we know that, most of these housemates are not very good at taking accountability for their actions. They instead will come into the diary room to tell tall tales, twist the narratives, and lie to our faces, gaslighting us, the viewers, and also gaslighting Big Brother. And sometimes Big Brother lets them go away with it, but sometimes he doesn't. So I loved how his diary session panned out. There was a lot of clarity. The truth was revealed. Yeah. And one thing I really do hope for is that on Sunday, when Imisi is called upon to the diary room for her eviction diary session, I really do hope that even though she does not bring up the matter, that people that needs to bring it, this rebellion, this recalcitrant behavior, this provocative behavior that she's been exhibiting this entire week. I'm not even talking about every other day. I'm talking about this entire week that Faith has been head of house. It is completely unacceptable. Big Brother needs to call her to order. I understand that, the production possibly likes the drama. They possibly like it and they deem it entertaining. But they also need to understand that there's a lot of skewed narratives flying out there. And Faith is suffering heavily for it. This guy's reputation is being soiled on a daily basis because Big Brother is not doing the needful by drawing the line between what housemates should do in terms of the head of house situation, how the head of house should be respected, and whatever else. So Big Brother needs to do the right thing. He needs to do the needful. He needs to call Imisi to order. Because in all of this, Imisi does not believe that she has done anything wrong. She's been consistently provocative. And Big Brother's silence in all of these matters is giving the impression that she's a saint. I'm really hoping that Big Brother does the right thing. And I suspect that when Imisi comes to the diary room on Sunday, she's going to come and start playing the victim card. She's going to come and start crying and acting like, oh my God, Faith wanted to destroy me and whatnot. If she does that, I am expecting that Big Brother calls her to order. I'm expecting that Big Brother exposes her for her lies and for her insolence. And also to let her understand that the role of head of house is just as important as the presence of Big Brother in that house. Because imagine if Imisi was the head of house and Faith decided to do all of these things that Imisi has been doing. The story would have been different today. The narrative would have been that, oh, Faith is bullying Imisi because he's a guy and she's female. So Big Brother needs to do the right thing. And I'm putting emphasis on Big Brother doing the right thing because this has really gotten out of hand. It really has. People's reputations are involved here. And Big Brother needs to do the needful. But aside that, I totally loved the way Big Brother had ended Faith's diary session, you know, giving him his flowers, you know, hyping him up, calling him the #1 challenger, the resident doctor, and the most feared head of house. Ladies and gentlemen, it was nice. It was nice. But I'm going to stop talking here right now because I would love to hear from all of you. So please go ahead and share your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll see you guys on my next video. Thanks for watching. Have an amazing, amazing evening.